Hi everyone, Harry here to talk about the motion to disbar the first lawyer for Cassidy Hutchinson. All right, to review the bidding a little bit here, I think we all remember Cassidy Hutchinson. She's arguably the biggest witness, at least the pivotal one, in the whole January 6th committee proceedings. She alone, I think, had the access and the absence of any kind of bias. And she was clearly the star witness in one of the hearings. And Liz Cheney in particular kind of directed her testimony, and it was pretty strong against Trump and Meadows in terms of expectant, and Giuliani in terms of knowing that January 6th was coming and just what it was going to consist of, and knowing when it came and the awareness on the ground. So she was very important for knowledge and planning, both everything that would go into a prosecution for conspiracy, and just would paint the whole effort as it was. All right, so that's who she is. Now, Stefan Passantino was her handpicked lawyer, and not handpicked by her, handpicked by Team Trump. She gets a call from him saying, "Hi, I'm your lawyer." And she says, well, okay, she'd heard of him, but didn't really know much about him. Asked about an engagement letter. He said, oh, don't worry about any of that. Asked about preparation for testimony. He said, well, if you want to. Asked about printing out her calendar to prepare. Well, why do you want to print out a calendar? This is all, by the way, in connection to her first appearance before the January 6th committee. She had, I think, 3 at least in total. Anyway, she goes in there with Passantino as her lawyer. And in the preparation, he basically said to her, if you're not sure, it's just fine to say, I don't recall. He does tell her, well, you're not supposed to lie. On the other hand, he makes it clear that she can say, I don't recall, even if she sort of does recall. He tells her, we want to get you in and out of there. We want to downplay your role. You're just an administrative secretary person. Everyone's on the same page about this. That means on Team Trump. It's very unfair that this is happening to you. And at least as she has it, the less you remember, the better. I don't think you should be filling in any calendars or anything. Now, I've just read from a 22-page complaint filed by a whole group of blue ribbon famous lawyers to the DC bar saying you should investigate Passantino and potentially disbar him, because he was just flagrantly disloyal to her as his client, which is the sort of, axiomatic first principle of being a lawyer. So to fill it in, the big day comes, she goes to testimony, and she's asked a question about something that she does remember, kind of looks at him nervously and says, I don't recall. And something else comes out and says, I don't recall. And then she calls for a break. And she goes in with Passantino to a separate room and says, I'm so effed. She's totally distraught. She says to him, she just lied because she does recall, and she's saying she doesn't. And he allegedly, this is stuff to investigate. This is her account of it. But he says, look, you don't have to fill it in. He essentially says, he's sort of two-faced about it, but without ever saying, go in there and lie, Cassidy. He basically says, if you don't recall, that's not a problem. And he also says in the preparation, I forgot a really important part of it, that we just want to focus on protecting the president. We all know you're loyal. Let's just get you in and out, and this day will be easy. And he makes kind of overtures about jobs for her after, if she stays on the good side and stays loyal, and you really have nothing to worry about. Okay, and then when she lies, he basically says it's okay. Now, she thinks she's just committed perjury. She actually also tells a friend, at the time, so she's not just making it up after. And she discharges him and gets a new lawyer and goes in and tells the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And that includes all the details. The whole country spent a good hour and more hearing about, including Giuliani saying January 6th is going to be wild, and Meadows saying, he doesn't, that overhearing say Trump doesn't want to, he thinks Pence is getting what he deserves, some of the best stuff we have. And she's just the ears here, remember. She's a really splendid witness for them and will be in any prosecution because she's got really no axe to grind. It just comes across very well in terms of her own credibility. So this all happens. She basically is okay because she cleans up her act, gets her own lawyer, and tells the truth. And now back to Passantino. So there have been a lot of Trump lawyers who've maybe pushed hard or been less than candid. And some of them are in hot water for sanctions and potentially disbarment. But this is much more down the middle because he basically encourages her to lie. There's just no way around this. It happens all the time that witnesses say, I don't recall when they do, but that is perjury. And it's very hard to prove, but prosecutors will go after it. And the main thing is, it is whether or not you can build a prosecution around or not. If does it a lie, there's probably witness influence and obstruction in the suggestion that if she plays ball and stays loyal to Trump, and that's the real thing to do, that they will take care of her. So it's just, he's a mob lawyer here, again, under the allegations as we know them from Hutchinson, she's not one of the people who've moved the district to disbarm. It's a bunch of, really prominent lawyers. But given what she says, it's a very elementary and serious violation of his number one duty of loyalty to the client. He just sacrifices her to the greater cause of Trump and encourages her to lie. So potential subordination of perjury, violation of his duty of loyalty, obstruction in trying to say to her, tell the half-truth and we'll take care of you later. So that's now goes to it's a pretty serious process. It's the first step in potential disbarment of Passantino, who, by the way, did take a leave of absence from his firm in last December when all this came out. So he's already in kind of a no man's land waiting to see his fate. His very, very best scenario is that he doesn't get disbarred, but has a permanent stain on his reputation and record. But disbarment in D.C. is not out of the question. So he's basically ruined, I think, or darn near close to it for wanting to play the mob lawyer role. He's then being hired and paid for. That part's okay. People pay for other people's lawyers, but then the lawyers have to be totally loyal and faithful to their client. And by the allegations, he not only didn't do that, but he committed crimes in the process. So there you have it, the talented Stefan Passantino in a big vat of hot water, and an investigation starting in D.C. that could eventuate with his losing his license to practice law. So we'll see how that develops. These things take many months at a minimum, but he's already filed a letter in his own defense from previously, but it applies here. So the battle will be engaged. And, he's in a world of hurt no matter what happens. So that's the story. We'll keep track of Mr. Passantino and what happens to him. Something big. I'll be back to let you know about it. And until then, talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.